Hello and welcome to the last episode of Real PR with me, Fiona Scott, for 2024. How on earth have we got to the end of the year so quickly? It's amazing how quickly time goes by. So I'm going to hopefully help you today, because it is just me, you've just got me today, help you with some hints, tips and ideas for 2025. I'm going to cover three main things. I'm going to cover a few events, and they're UK based, that are going to be going on in 2025. I am going to cover some PR trends, so things that are happening in the industry of PR and marketing, so you get some sense of what's coming down the line. And then finally, I am going to talk about the type of stories that I think journalists will be looking for in 2025. This might help with some planning or just getting ahead of the curve in this sort of downtime that some of us can have between Christmas and New Year. So with that in mind, let's get into it. So big events for 2025 that can be on your radar is the Women's Rugby World Cup. That's coming up. And just to say, I will be looking at my notes because there's no way that I can remember all of this stuff, folks. So please bear with. Bradford in the UK. In 2025, it will become the UK City of Culture. So if you come from Bradford or you live in Bradford now, you'll already know about this and you can talk about it and celebrate it and share it. 2025 is the 250th anniversary of Jane Austen's birth, the author. This is of particular relevance if you live in the Bath area or the Hampshire area. But if you're a bookworm, you love Jane Austen or you don't, as the case may be, you might want to talk about that. Or any of the issues that Jane Austen brought up in her books that you could piggyback on during 2025 when these matters are being discussed. It's also the 250th birthday of two really well-known artists from yesteryear, Turner, JMW Turner and John Constable. So you might want to refer to that if you live in the areas where they came from. I don't know, if you love their work, you're an artist, or you might not like their work and you can say why. You can use that as well. Also next year is the 20th anniversary of the marriage of King Charles with Queen Camilla. So any of you that are celebrating a 20th anniversary, wedding anniversary next year, I can guarantee the media are going to be looking for you to find out, compare and contrast how you've made it work for 20 years, etc., etc. So if that's you, put it in your diary. Also, 2025 is the beginning of a new generation. So I'm Generation X, then there's Generation Z, then Generation Alpha. From 2025, all children born in 2025 for about the next 15 years will be Generation Beta. So if you're talking about anything to do with generational things, that's something you can hang your hat on in 2025. It's also the year of Railway 200. 200 years since the opening of the Stockton and Darlington Railway in 1825. So there's going to be loads of stuff around about that, particularly in those areas. That'll be important. But also for someone like me who lives in Swindon, where the railway's massively part of Swindon's heritage. There are also going to be a number of anniversaries around the Second World War, which will come up in 2025. So it'll be the 80th anniversary of VE Day, 85th Battle of Britain, 85th Battle of Dunkirk. Those are just three, and I'm sure there'll be more. Next year will be the 20th anniversary of the 2005 terrorist attacks in London. I'll say no more about that, but I'm just letting you know it is the anniversary. It will also be 100 years since John Logie Baird first transmitted television pictures, albeit they were a bit rubbish. It wasn't rubbish back in the day, 100 years ago. And it is also 130 years since the birth of cinema, or what's widely recognised as the birth of cinema. So you can look those up if you want to. It's also 15 years in 2025 since astronaut Tim Peake became the first British astronaut to board the International Space Station. So if space is something you love, or you've met Tim Peake, as I have, you might want to remind people of that in 2025. Right, I'm going to move on now to PR trends. Things that are going to be important in the way you behave in your PR and your marketing. Because remember, in my world, public relations is all of marketing. So what are things you're going to see even more of in 2025? Well, the first thing is the super importance of being human and being personal. Personal stories, personal recommendations, marketing around personal stories, which may not even mention your product or service at all, but creates an emotional connection. So think of the John Lewis and the Aldi adverts at Christmas time, Coca-Cola, and you might want to consider injecting humour into things in 2025. Another one is authenticity. So human beings generally tend to be authentic unless they're not. This isn't about that. This is about being an authentic company where it's more than being transactional. So it's having ethics and purpose, and also being true to those ethics and purpose. You need to be talking your walk and walking your talk. So you've got to be authentic and come across as authentic, because this is more important in an era of fake news where there is more and more suspicion around things, particularly on social media. So no greenwashing, for example, and no double standards. You'll be called out on it, I promise you. Right, social media interactions continue to be very important, probably growing. And I'm going to give you some figures because there is a lot of guff around this. Facebook is slowing, but it is still the biggest social media platform by quite a margin. And that is not going to change in 2025. It might slow, but it's still big. So Facebook at the moment has something like 3,000 million active users a month. That's a lot. That's a lot. And it's the biggest. Next is YouTube, around 2,500 million a month. Then Instagram, then WhatsApp. So as you can see, both LinkedIn and TikTok are still behind with that. But TikTok is the fastest growing social media platform in the UK. So being there in 2025 will start to make more sense than it even did in 2024. Okay, here we go. In-person events are also going to be more and more important, but they are going to need to be good, immersive and experiential, so people are having a great time, because it's going to be harder to get bums on seats. If you're doing something that's a bit people will stay at home and use Zoom or Teams. Why wouldn't they? Cheaper and less time. So in-person events have to be seen as being really worth it, but they are on the up. And it has taken a while, hasn't it, since the pandemic, when we could go nowhere, but it's coming back. Also, there are going to be changes in the way the media operates. It's already happening. So you'll see there'll be more paywalls, more Substack paid for subscription options, where the media are relying less on expensive advertising, which they can't get, and more on people paying a little bit to be involved. And this has implications for PR, of course, and implications for you, and they're going to see more of it. You'll also see journalists more and more creating their own brand and having their own big audiences and paying for people to be exposed to those audiences. This is all going to be part of PR in the future, whether you like it or not. The mix between paid and unpaid will become greater and greater. It's already there, but it's going to become more obvious. And it's more obvious in the USA, so that is going to get more and more obvious here. Okay, moving on. AI. We all know that AI and the tech around it is going to grow in 2025 and beyond. This is also the same for the world of PR and storytelling. But a word of caution here. Well, it's great for idea generation, finding certain words and phrases, maybe improving the way you're saying things yourself. Using AI to replace your authentic voice will become less and less effective, because you will end up sounding like everybody else in your sector, and AI is now hunting down AI. So on platforms where there are stories, such as Medium, if you are using AI to create your content on there, they're going to be using AI to root you out. So you do need to still have your original content. Use it wisely in this context. I am not having a go about AI. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think there are dangers, but it's a wonderful thing. But in my world, it has to be used correctly and sparingly. Right, another trend that's going to come through in 2025 more than ever is C-suite and CEO thought leadership And activism, that might be in an area of expertise, it might be in business, speaking up, being seen, heard and be counted, and willing to share opinions. So CEOs and C-suite execs who are willing to do this is a time of opportunity, but you need to be brave around it. Being bland and beige and vanilla is not going to work in this context. If you want to be more than your business and you want to stand out and be active and make change, you're going to have to show a little bit more opinion, okay? Crisis management in PR will also come forward at this time. It's always been there. For many small businesses, it's quite rare. But on the other hand, the more exposure you have, the more social media you're doing, the more risks there are. Your biggest risks come from social media, so you need a plan and a policy around handling that. How have you handled it already? How do you handle it going forward? Your next biggest risk comes from your team, your staff. And you need to be really careful about that. Also around clients. So you need to be mindful of that and how you're going to manage that. Look at your contracts of employment around behaviour on social media, etc., etc. Tighten up those things in 2025 because it is going to matter. Another thing that's going to come to the fore, I think, is employee advocacy. So this is where employees will be increasingly geared towards and perhaps expected to promote your company on their own social media platforms. And increasingly over time, especially in smaller businesses, those potential employees who are unwilling to do that will be less and less attractive as employees. So you need to consider that because it's a very grey area around what is private and what's to do with business, what can damage reputation and what cannot. So it's something you need to think about, especially if you've got a growing business, because you could grow fast and suddenly find yourself in hot water or with someone who's not engaging with the company in the way that you would want. So you need to think about employee advocacy. There's going to be an increase in more videos, AR, VR, immersive experiences to get people to really get you, particularly in sectors which are saturated, where there are a lot of people doing what you do. It could be something in 2025 that makes you and your brand stand out. So really think about this. Could you do something humorous? Could you do a podcast or, a YouTube channel? Something along those lines, but you do need to plan it. You do need to be consistent. Okay, subjects that I think the media will continue to be not prioritised, but that their ears are prick up when they see you talking about it. Sustainability, going green, eco stuff, particularly the journey to net zero, not being perfect. So that's a good one. AI, tech, cyber stories for good and ill. So if that's relevant to you, talk about that. Generational stuff. Generation from baby boomers, Z, X, alpha, beta, all around that stuff. That particularly brings up stats. Health, well-being, wellness, mental health will continue to be of importance, particularly around hacks, tips and new therapies or gadgets or products. Hyper-local. Excuse me. Hyper-local will be important too. And this will be like PR or stories you can share in a very local magazine, Parish Pump magazine, or within very local Facebook groups or interest groups that you have that are relevant to you, your expertise or your business. Don't be afraid about that. That also acts as part of PR. Data. Data is often the thing that businesses miss. There are stories in data. Talk about your data. You might use it for internal measurement, see where your customers coming from, all of which is valid. How many of you actually use it to find stories in your data? Data makes stories, particularly if you can adhere it to a region or a postcode area. Obviously, it's relevant to your type of business. I can't tell you where the stories are, but if you've got a lot of data in your business and you don't know how to make stories of it, get in touch with me because that is something I can support you with. Okay, more and more importantly will become general advice and information in easy, digestible hints and tips. Not here's a whole essay or an encyclopedia on such and such. No, 10 top tips, 7, 6, 5, even 3, and you can break those up into social media posts. Also, Journalists are going to become more important for you because many of them are doing other things. I alluded to it before. They're having Substacks, they're becoming podcasters, writers, bloggers. So there are more opportunities to engage, which might come outside of the commissions they get with the various publications. So for instance, a property journalist might focus heavily on property in their day job, but I don't know, have a blog about where they live. In Wiltshire, for example. Look out for opportunities like that. Journalists tend not to be one-trick ponies. They literally tell stories all the time. So they might choose different subjects. So keep your eyes out for that. Celebrity news will continue to be big news. And one of the reasons for that, I mean, it always has been the case. But now, younger people are super connected to their celebrities in their own minds. Because in this world where we are connected, they feel closer to it. So look at the Taylor Swift phenomenon. If you ever think that that's not a real thing, it really is. They feel like they're close to her, which of course is nonsense. She knows just as many people as we do. She cannot be super connected to millions and millions of people, but those millions and millions of people feel like that. So they will notice if you should have a picture with Taylor Swift, but any celebrity, get those pictures if you meet someone, clearly ask their permission. Don't do it without their permission. But a bit of celebrity gloss is very helpful when it comes to PR. And finally, in terms of tips, people stories always trump everything. You know, yeah, it's great that you've moved office, but a story about the team, someone's success in the team or you will always trump everything. Strong human interest stories around your own expertise or experiences will always be far more important to the media, probably far more clicked on as well in terms of social media posts and blogs. So people's stories always trump anything, everything. And I'm just going to share some stats with you from a report by Cision. So Cision is a company that many PR companies use. They provide like journalist requests and many other services to PR professionals. They've done a report for 2024. Let me re-emphasize 2024. And that report is about what journalists want from PR professionals. What are journalists looking for now from PR professionals? Now, if you do your own PR, that's you, okay? Because you are doing your own PR. So what are they looking for? I'm giving you the top 5 things that they're looking for. 5. The 5th one is multimedia assets. And I'll tell you more about that later. 4th, event invitations. They still want to be invited to stuff. They might not be able to go, but they want to be invited. Make sure you invite them. And also in many cases, particularly if they're out-of-area journalists or national journalists, you will have to pay to get them there from the minute they step out the door of their home to the minute they get back. But remember, if they're national journalists, the coverage that they can get you is worth that cost. Okay, so event invitations. 3, exclusive stories. That is very important for the national press. They may want you to sign a deal for that story to be exclusive, or your client, as in my case. Sometimes that exclusivity could last 24 hours, 48, 72 or a few weeks. But make sure you get a tail end on it. It's not forever and ever. You know, are they going to use it? There's this timeline line on it. And if they don't use it, you can take the story elsewhere. It is okay to set those parameters. Okay, the second thing that they want from PR professionals are research reports, surveys, i.e. data. I've already mentioned it, and it's here in black and white in the Cision report. They want it. And the number one thing they want, so they're not dead, folks, is press releases. Press releases is just a term we use to say body of information about something going on. That's all it is. Number 1, that's what journalists are looking for. Right, I'm going to roll back to the multimedia, which was number 5. So what does that mean? It means extra assets you can provide to support the story or the case study or the experience you're sharing. What does that mean? Well, it means relevant social media posts and link to them. It means any data or surveys that support what you are sharing. And those data and surveys don't have to be yours. They could be from a third-party source, as long as you tell them where that third-party source is. The next one is video. they like video. So, don't be shy to share a couple of links. It could be Vimeo or YouTube links which show you talking, particularly if it's around the subject matter that is relevant. So they want video. And the biggest one, which may surprise you, the number one thing they want, images, i.e. photographs that match the story. And where possible, that are professional. Not always possible if you're doing a story that covers a long period of time, but images are key. So there you go, folks. That's it for 2024. Loads of tips. I wish you a fantastic new year in 2025. Join me again soon. If you want to see where I am in the meantime, I'm at scottmedia.uk. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, bit on TikTok, starting to be on there now. Or you can join me on Facebook, Fiona Scott's PR Tribe. Just mention this episode and I'll let you in. It's totally free. Thank you.